Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be here today. For a politician, I was here to this event last year, so you can imagine my sense of joy that as a politician, when you've spoken once to an audience, to be invited back actually quite a rare occasion. So I'm actually delighted to be here. Ambassador, pleasure to see you again. We're making a repetition of this. We've bumped into each other a number of times in the last couple of weeks, but it's always a pleasure. And thank you very much indeed for the kind words that you said about this important bilateral relationship, which I think is one of the reasons why we are here today. And can I also join the Ambassador in thanking Richard and Tobias and Jewish News for the support that you bring in this together, allowing this discussion. It sounds like we've got a busy day ahead, which is very, very good indeed for us to discuss these issues, to be wiser about some of the challenges that we face, and so collectively we can cognitively look for some of the solutions and the opportunities that we have, not just from a UK Israeli perspective, but also for the regional as well. Can I just also say from a personal note, this is one of the first events that I've come to where the Deputy Ambassador has actually not here. Those of you who are familiar with him, he's been a stalwart, he was one of the first characters I met when I started this job, and quite a sort of, how can I describe him, sort of a big burly character, sort of no messing around, and he's actually got a heart of gold. And I think he got quite emotional, I think, when it was time to, he only left a couple of weeks ago, but he did a sterling effort. Also in the interim period, when Mark hadn't arrived yet, so he took over the show for a bit and very much enjoyed it. And we wish him all the best in his new endeavour, I think in Turkey he's heading towards. But thank you very much indeed for his work and his commitment to the bilateral relationship. He certainly will be missed. But when I first spoke at this conference, when I first spoke at this conference last June, I recall speaking about the fact that the pollsters had actually got a lot of their predictions very wrong indeed. The elections had actually taken place in the UK and indeed in Israel. And amid all the changes that are taking place in America, I think we can all confirm that that hasn't changed, that there is nothing accurate about polling that we see today. It's what the people count. It's the messaging to gaining the consent of the people themselves, rather than these pooling of perhaps individual markers to decide or try and predict the outcome of what's going on. Actually, it's the results of the elections that count, and the American election, as we've seen, conjured up perhaps a different result than people were indeed predicting. But I'm pleased to say that our Prime Minister, Theresa May, not only has congratulated President-elect Donald Trump just after the election itself, but they also had a phone call yesterday talking about a wide range of issues, but also confirming that that relationship, an important bilateral relationship based on the values of freedom, democracy and enterprise will absolutely continue. We very much look forward to working with the new administration on a wide variety of issues, including many of those that have been mentioned by the Ambassador this morning. The United States remains a huge importance to our country, to Israel, and indeed to the world at large. And as the Foreign Secretary said, we should judge this new administration by their actions in office and be as positive as we possibly can about working with them. The President-elect has already said that he wants to reach a deal on the peace process, and that is something I think we all want to see. And it's encouraging to hear that that is the commitment that we are seeing also remaining firm with all these adversities that are taking place by the Israeli government as well. Now, the other big event that has taken place recently, and also affected by the polls, dare I say it as well, is that 23rd of June event, the EU referendum. And it has changed and pushed us into a new chapter, one that perhaps some of us weren't necessarily anticipating. But it is a shift from a political perspective into a new landscape, which in this generation moving forward needs to adapt and contend with. But it does not mean that Britain is any less engaged because we will no longer have an EU membership card in our back pocket on the world stage. We are going to be as forthright and as determined as ever as a force for good, with the ability and the resolve to affect the issues and challenges that we face on the international stage as ever we were before. And when we think about some of the challenges that we face, excuse me, such as the Iranian nuclear deal, for example, or indeed the challenge of Ebola in Africa, often it's the coalition of the willing. It's not necessarily what club you're part of or international organization. It's whether you're willing to step forward and say, actually, there is a role for us to play. There is a moral duty for us to participate. There is a leadership requirement. And that is in our DNA. That is in the British DNA, to step forward, to make sure that when other countries perhaps are hesitant, that we look at these things and provide cognitive solutions. That is why we have earned, I believe, our place as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and continue to deserve that place as well. To be involved, be resolved to help solve the problems of the world, but also the opportunities of the world, to make the world a safer and more prosperous place. So outside the EU we may be, but we will be flexible, we will be free, and we will be agile, and we will continue to play that role in foreign policy, on international security and development, and of course trade as well. We will be more independent from one perspective, working alongside these traditional trading blocks, which we won't move away from, but trading freely with others in our best interests and indeed in theirs. Now that then takes us to this bilateral relationship, because this includes Israel, which we consider an important, a critical ally in the Middle East, for all the reasons that the ambassador has alluded to. The friendship between our two countries is a great asset to the UK, and for one that we all benefit. And as the Prime Minister said in her first conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu in July, the UK will take the decision to leave the EU as an opportunity to be even more active internationally and strengthen our relationships beyond Europe, including with Israel. And it's already happening. Before even Article 50 has been triggered, high-level negotiations, not just government ministers, but also business leaders, regularly travel in both directions between our two countries. And I was delighted to return myself to Israel earlier this year, and we had an extremely good exchange, not just myself, but with other members of Parliament as well, with Prime Minister Netanyahu, who welcomed our commitment to both opposing the boycotts of Israel, but also had the opportunity to meet with members of the opposition, including Isaac Herzog, who I understand will be speaking here later today. But also I have a connection from my constituency. Bournemouth has a big Jewish, vibrant population, very, very involved as well, very, very engaged, but they're also twinned with the town of Netanya, the wonderful seaside resort on the Mediterranean. And it was a real pleasure during my visits to go and visit that town for the first time, and also meet your very feisty mayor, or mayoress as it was, who's, I think she emulates herself on Margaret Thatcher, which is no mean feat, but it's a real pleasure to see that bond absolutely continue. And I do hope one day we'll be able to see AFC Bournemouth, the football club that is now doing so well, take a visit to Netanya to play the local football team there. I don't know what the score will be, but I'm certainly we'll have a good time if we do go there. But here in London, it's a pleasure that we're able to work so closely with you, Ambassador, and your team. And we continue to have a sort of never-ending stream of visitors, in fact, coming over from Israel, and they are, of course, always welcome. In September, I think you were juggling programs of no fewer than 3 cabinet ministers in the space of a single week that was coming over to the United Kingdom. Such are the pressures that come with such strong bilateral relationships. But of course, it is a relationship that goes beyond the bilateral interests. And as the Minister for the entire Middle East, I'm pleased to have such a close defense and intelligence partner such as Israel that Ambassador Mark mentioned only a moment ago. I know it is a partnership that Israel welcomes too. a relationship that Defence Minister Lieberman, whom I met in September here in London, welcomed last week when he was on board HMS Bulwark in Haifa. And a sure sign of this relationship work is our cooperation on monitoring the Iran nuclear deal, or giving it its proper name, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The UK and Israel didn't initially see eye to eye on this, on its implementation last summer. But I am pleased that Iran's breakout time, the ability for it to create a nuclear weapon, has now increased from a matter of weeks to more than a year. And this is important for the international community to be able to be given their reaction time were they ever to want to go down this awful route again. But we will continue to remain vigilant and to encourage Iran to return to the international rules-based system. Now we know it matters to Israel. It also matters to us. And it matters to us both because the bedrock of our relationship with Israel is our shared values. We are liberal democracies. We uphold the rule of law. We also have feisty parliaments, and that I think is helpful as well. We also believe in equality, and that is why the ties between our countries continue to grow stronger and stronger. Our tourists and our business ideas flow in both directions, and we collaborate on cutting-edge stem cell research and cyber technology. We're using Israeli pharmaceuticals in the NHS, and we're putting British Rolls-Royce engines in El Al's planes. And we're even exchanging on cultural level, as an Israeli theatre company is performing Shakespeare, both in Hebrew and in Arabic, in the country of his birth here, 400 years after his death. Now, the ambassador mentioned the Balfour Centenary. UK's ties with Israel will come into the spotlight next year, as we know. But as we reach the centenary of this Balfour Declaration, we welcome the fact that the UK played an important part in the creation of Israel. We continue to support the principle of a Jewish homeland, just as Lord Balfour did nearly a century ago. And of course, we value the relationship with the modern-day state of Israel that we are discussing here today. At the same time, the UK government must be conscious of the sensitivities around the Balfour Declaration, its legacy, and the events that have taken place in the region since 1917. The Balfour Declaration was a product of its time. 67 words were written in that, but it's been digested and pulled apart so many times by historians, commentators, and so forth. But millions, we should recognize, are still affected by the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And we therefore, from our perspective, must take a measured approach. Now, Israel mourned the loss of part of its history this year with the death of former President and Prime Minister Shimon Peres. I think the last of Israel's founding fathers. The UK's delegation at his funeral was led by the Prince of Wales, supported by the Foreign Secretary and 2 former Prime Ministers. Now, I think that illustrates the high esteem in which he was held in his country and indeed across the world. And we should, of course, learn from the past, but we must also look to the future. The Middle East peace process remains a UK foreign policy priority, but we have learned that continents should not be carved up by foreign powers as they were in Balfour's time. Rather, it is for the parties to negotiate a 2-state solution with the support, of course, of the international community. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I'll conclude by saying, as a committed partner and friend of Israel, the UK stands ready to support this goal. Surely, it must be time for both sides to show the necessary leadership to avoid provocation and to take the steps needed to achieve that peace. We will continue to do what we can to help, and at the same time, the relationship between our 2 countries continues to grow broader, grow deeper, and stronger. And I'm confident, I don't need any pollsters to tell me with this, that our relationship will go from strength to strength. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I hope